She represents the largest military town in America, and right now, 2,500 of her Marines are floating off the coast of Iran. So when Representative Sara Jacobs leans into the microphone, this isn't abstract for her. It's the families blowing up her office phones, terrified for the people they love. She reads two of the president's own war posts into the record. Apocalyptic, raw, the kind of words that make a parent's stomach drop.
As you also know, on Easter Sunday, President Trump threatened to destroy Iran's bridges and power plants, writing, quote, "Open the fucking straight, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch." And 2 days later, President Trump wrote, quote, "A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will." My office's phones have been ringing off the hook. I've heard from so many military families concerned about the president's mental fitness and whether he's fit to serve as our commander-in-chief, given that he's sending their loved ones into harm's way. Our troops, who have shown incredible bravery and tactical proficiency, deserve to know that their leaders are focused and stable.
And then she asks the Defense Secretary the question almost no one in that building will say out loud. Do you believe the president is mentally stable enough to be commander-in-chief?
Do you believe that the president is mentally stable enough to be the commander-in-chief?
Did you ask the same question of Joe Biden for 4 years?
Mr. Secretary, Joe Biden is not the president.
Watch Pete Hegseth refuse to answer. Watch him reach for Joe Biden, for Afghanistan, for anything but the man in front of him. And watch Jacobs come prepared, with a list of his own allies who've said the same thing, and a final ledger of this war that flips her own question right back at him. Let's get into it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, as you know, I represent San Diego, the largest military community in the country. Right now, as we are speaking, 2,500 San Diego Marines are off the coast of Iran. Many, many other San Diegans in uniform have gotten 48-hour deployment notices. So this war in Iran is not theoretical for me or for my constituents. It's deeply personal. As you also know, on Easter Sunday, President Trump threatened to destroy Iran's bridges and power plants, writing, quote, "Open the fucking straight, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch." And 2 days later, President Trump wrote, quote, "A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will." My office's phones have been ringing off the hook. I've heard from so many military families concerned about the president's mental fitness and whether he's fit to serve as our commander-in-chief, given that he's sending their loved ones into harm's way. Our troops, who have shown incredible bravery and tactical proficiency, deserve to know that their leaders are focused and stable. So, Mr. Secretary, you are with the president a lot, and it pains me to even have to ask this about our president, but my constituents' lives are at stake. Do you believe that the president is mentally stable enough to be the commander-in-chief?
Did you ask the same question of Joe Biden for 4 years?
Mr. Secretary, Joe Biden is not the president. Mr. Trump has been president for a year and a half, and I'm asking you
did
right
not,
now.
and I won't even engage with the level of disparagement that you're putting on the commander-in-chief, who indeed is. Meeting with him every single day.
Mr. Secretary, Biden is not the president.
He's the sharpest, most insightful commander-in-chief we've had in generations. And you want to compare, you want to ask that question after you and your fellow Democrats defended Joe Biden, who could barely speak and didn't know what day of the week it was?
As you know,
he governed through an auto pen. You got a Secretary of Defense who went AWOL for a week. I can't be gone for 10 days, for 10 minutes.
I will reclaim my time.
Gentlelady's time. She reclaimed it.
So, as Mr. Jimenez said, we should be taking leaders at their word. So is there a reason that we should not be taking our leader at his word?
Iran should not underestimate the will of President Trump and the United States military to achieve our mission.
Okay, well, I want you to know this is not a partisan thing. In fact, many Democrats have had, many Republicans have had these same questions. Marjorie Taylor Greene said he's out of control and he's gone insane. Candace Owens said the 25th Amendment needs to be invoked. Megyn Kelly, Tucker Carlson, who you used to work with, Alex Jones, Stephanie Grisham, the list could go on. So how do I explain to my constituents that while they are in harm's way, their commander-in-chief is posting these unhinged posts?
How did you explain to your constituents what happened on October 7th? or what happened in Afghanistan, or what happened with the debacle and the withdrawal in Afghanistan, where the troops were left. How did you explain that with Joe Biden's leadership?
Mr. Secretary,
how did you
I'm not
explain that to the
asking you
Marines
about
that
the
didn't get
previous
medals, that
administration.
we restored their medals because of that
Mr.
disastrous
Secretary,
withdrawal in
I'm asking
Afghanistan?
about
Did you
what's
explain that to
happening
your
right now.
constituents when Joe Biden was asleep at the wheel and he had an AWOL
Okay, Mr.
Secretary of
Secretary,
Defense?
how
I don't
about
think you
this
did.
next post? How can I explain this next post to my constituents? I'm Jewish, so this doesn't really bother me, but my understanding is that this is quite offensive to many Christians. So how do you explain this post?
I'm not here to explain posts. We have an incredible commander-in-chief who
Mr.
puts our
Secretary,
troops first. I'm here for a budget hearing about our troops.
This is
It's a historic budget that's giving
our
us a
troops.
chance to defeat
Mr. Secretary,
our adversaries,
Mr.
and President
Secretary,
Trump is
please,
doing that
this
in
is my time.
world-class fashion.
This is
The
about
gentlelady
our
has
troops.
reclaimed her time, Mr. Secretary.
This is about our troops. This is about who is commanding our troops and if our troops can trust that they are being sent into harm's way under good strategy. The mental stability of our commander-in-chief is deeply important to our troops. It's deeply important to this country. It
wasn't
our
important to you
troops'
during Joe
lives at
Biden.
stake. I'll remind you that when there were concerns, Democrats came together, and he was not our nominee for president. So I encourage you to have the same courage that Democrats had. Mr. Secretary, you keep saying that he is the best commander-in-chief we've ever had, the best negotiator.
Talk to the troops.
13 American troops have died. More than 380 have been wounded. The Strait of Hormuz, which was wide open, is now closed. Less than 90% of traffic through the strait is still not going despite the ceasefire. The Iranian regime is still in power. It still has nuclear material. The war is costing Americans billions of dollars. And Mr. Secretary, if you think that this is what winning looks like, then maybe we should be questioning your mental stability. Maybe you are the one responsible for this failure, and the president should think about replacing you. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Chair, I recognize the
not
gentlelady
surprising.
from Virginia, Ms. Kiggins.
Jacobs opens by grounding an explosive question in something nobody can dismiss as theater, the lives of the people she represents. By stating that 2,500 Marines from her San Diego district are at that very moment off the coast of Iran and that other constituents have received 48-hour deployment notices, she strips the conversation of abstraction and stakes a claim that whatever she asks next is asked on behalf of families in genuine fear. Then she does something rhetorically powerful. She reads two of the president's own war-related social media posts directly into the record, including apocalyptic language about a whole civilization dying. The strategy here is that she does not have to characterize the posts herself. She simply lets the words sit in the air of a formal hearing where their tone clashes against the gravity of the setting. Only after establishing that foundation does she pose the actual question whether the secretary believes the president is mentally stable enough to be commander-in-chief, and she frames it not as her own accusation, but as the concern flooding her office from military families, which insulates her from looking like she is launching a partisan attack and instead positions her as a conduit for worried constituents. Hegseth's response sets the pattern for the entire exchange, which is a refusal to engage the question on its own terms and a reflexive pivot to Joe Biden. His first words are to ask whether she posed the same question about Biden for 4 years, and when she points out that Biden is not the president and that Trump has held the office for a year and a half, he escalates into a defense built almost entirely on comparison, calling Trump the most insightful commander-in-chief in generations while attacking Democrats for having defended a Biden who he says could barely speak, governed through an auto pen, and had a defense secretary who went AWOL. This is whataboutism in its purest form, and it is worth understanding why he reaches for it, because directly answering the stability question carries no upside for him. If he says yes without qualification, he looks like he is dismissing legitimate concern, and if he hedges at all, he creates a headline. So instead, he tries to make the question itself seem illegitimate by recasting it as hypocrisy. The tactic also lets him avoid ever defending the specific posts Jacobs quoted, because relitigating the previous administration is far safer ground than explaining the current president's words. Jacobs anticipates the partisan framing and disarms it with what is probably her sharpest move, a roster of conservative figures. She explicitly says this is not a partisan thing, and then lists Marjorie Taylor Greene, Candace Owens, Megyn Kelly, Tucker Carlson, Alex Jones, and Stephanie Grisham as people who have raised similar concerns, with the pointed reminder that Hegseth used to work alongside some of them. The purpose is strategic rather than rhetorical decoration, because by citing prominent voices from the president's own coalition, she removes Hegseth's ability to dismiss the worry as something only Democrats hold. He counters by returning again to Afghanistan, invoking the chaotic withdrawal, the troops who were lost, and the medals his administration says it restored, which keeps him on the offensive and on territory where Republicans feel they have a strong indictment of the prior administration. When Jacobs tries to introduce another post, noting as a Jewish member that it is reportedly offensive to many Christians, Hegseth deploys his cleanest deflection of all, declaring that he is not there to explain posts and that this is a budget hearing about the troops, which attempts to reframe her entire line of questioning as a distraction from his actual purpose in the room. The closing is where Jacobs reveals that the mental stability framing was, in a sense, the lever rather than the destination, because she pivots from rhetoric to a hard ledger of outcomes. She reminds Hegseth that he keeps calling Trump the best commander-in-chief ever, and then lists what she presents as the results: 13 American troops dead, more than 380 wounded, the Strait of Hormuz closed when it had been open, the bulk of its traffic still halted despite a ceasefire, the Iranian regime still in power and still holding nuclear material, and a war costing billions. This is the substantive heart of her argument, the claim that the strategy itself has failed regardless of anyone's mental state, and she caps it by turning her own opening question back on the witness, suggesting that if he believes this is what winning looks like, perhaps his stability is the one in question and the president should consider replacing him. It is a deliberately provocative reversal designed to land as the clip's final blow. Throughout, it is important to be clear about the nature of what is happening, that questioning a sitting president's mental fitness is an intensely contested political tactic and not a clinical assessment, that the casualty figures and battlefield claims are Jacobs's own cited numbers presented in the most damaging light, and that Hegseth's refusal to engage is itself a calculated choice rather than an admission. As cross-examination, the segment is effective less because it extracts an answer, which it never does, and more because every dodge from the witness becomes part of the case Jacobs is building.